All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to part 2 of our look at 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons and the rules for combat. So we kind of went through, talked about move actions, and then we talked about actions in combat. Two different things. You can't interact with one another. They're two different things. Moving, you're able to obviously move your speed and interact with one object quickly. And then your actions in combat, lots of variety in what you can do. But when you choose one of them, you can't choose to do something else. So when you choose to dodge, you can't also choose to disengage. When you choose to attack, you can't also choose to hide. You can't do two of the big options. You can only do one of them. There are bonus actions and um, there are reactions as well. In fact, if we look at Hamtag here and under his abilities, if we look at Action Surge, it says starting at second level, you can push yourself beyond your normal limits for your movement. On your turn, you can take one additional action on top of your regular action and a possible bonus action. So on your turn, you can take an additional action on top of your regular action. So you would move, you would then take your action, and then you would use your action surge to take another action. So you could move up to someone, you could swing your weapon, and then you can swing your weapon again, right? Because of the action surge. So unless it specifically says you can take an additional action like this power here, you don't get to do more than one action, combat action. You only get to do one combat action unless you got a special ability that says otherwise. This one here is another good example. You have a limited well of stamina where you draw upon to protect yourself from harm. On your turn, you can use a bonus action to regain hit points equal to 1d10 plus your fighter level. So you would still get your move action, you would still get your action in combat, then you get this special bonus action. So remember when I'm telling you got move actions and then you have your actions in combat, everyone gets those, and unless you have a special power or ability, you can't do anything besides that. In this case, this one, a second wind, breaks the rules and gives you a bonus action. So there are spells as well. If we look at, say, Misty Step here, Misty Step, casting time, one bonus action. So this one can be a bonus action. If we look at shield, casting time, one reaction. So when you get hit by, here's the trigger. When you're hit by an attack or targeted by a magic missile, you cast this as your reaction. If you've used your reaction to do an attack of opportunity, then you don't have your reaction again until after your turn. So, when we talked about the situation up here, when Hamtag was surrounded by enemies, if Hamtag walks away from the enemies, does his move action to get away from them, the dungeon master might remember, oh, this guy has his reaction to prevent an attack, so he's not going to use his attack of opportunity as a reaction because maybe the dungeon master wants to save this spell so he can use a reaction. You only get one reaction and only one reaction. Let's talk about movement again. So I'm going to put some things here and reposition everyone, and we're back to the start of combat. Oh, there we go. Back to the start of combat. So again, you get your move, you get your move action, you get your action in combat. Two different things. During your move action, again, you can move up to your speed. In this case, his speed is 30. Each one of these spaces is 6 spaces. You can move through allies freely, but they cost you what they call difficult terrain. Difficult terrain costs you double the amount it would normally cost you. So in this case, Aldrich Daw, if he wanted to move through Aldrich Daw, it would cost him 10 movements, and then another 5, another 5, and then another 10 to move through the difficult terrain because of the logs on the ground. So it cost him 10, and then 5, and then 5, and then another 10. That's as far as he could take his movement. So difficult terrain is basically double uh, what it normally would take you, and moving through your allies, you can do that freely as long as you cost you double your movement space. So if this was the situation and Hamtag wanted to be over here, it cost him 10 plus another 10 plus another 5, and then probably another 5 to move there. So it cost him 10 to go there, 10 to go there, 5 and 5. That would be his 30 movement. But he could move through. You could not end your space with an enemy or with an ally. So if Hamtag was back here, you can't end your space with either an ally or an ally. An ally or an enemy. There we go. I knew I was going to say it eventually. So if Hamtag started here, it cost him 5, 5, 10, and it would cost him another 10 to move there, but he can't end his space in an ally's space. So he can't do that. He can't move there. So he's going to have to move either here or here. In 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, it's all about ease for the players and the Dungeon Master. All diagonal spaces are just 5 movement. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Whether you go diagonally, up, down, left, right, or whatever. There's an optional rule in the Dungeon Master where it's a little bit more difficult to move diagonally. Check with your Dungeon Master on how he runs diagonal movement. Just so you understand the rules. But the base rule is 5 squares, whether you're moving diagonally or left or right or whatever. But difficult terrain. So if I wanted to move, 5, and then it would cost me 10 movements to go there, and then another 5, and then another 5, right? Because of the difficult terrain. You cannot move through enemy spaces at all unless they're 2 size categories larger than you. So the sizes for creatures are, and I will read them off to you. So there's tiny, there's small, which are like dwarves and goblins, and even though they're small creatures, they still fill up a full 5x5 square. There's medium, which are like humans and elves and half-orcs. They take up a full 5x5. Then there's large, which take up a 10x10 area. Then there's huge, which take up a 15x15 area. So you can imagine something as big as, 15 feet by 15 feet. It'd be a little easier for me to move through the enemy at that point. But if we're in a dungeon and we're in a hallway that's only 5 feet wide, and the players were trying to go down the hallway, but there was a creature in the way, they couldn't go 5, 10, and go through the enemy. You're blocked by enemy movement. You can't enter their space. So if an orc is standing at the doorway, no one can enter the room until they've moved the orc out of the way or they've killed the orc or whatever. The players can do the same thing, which if you watched our 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons campaign on Thursday, Hamtag basically did the same thing to the enemies. He blocked the hallway, and they could only come at him one at a time, and were able to defeat all the enemies pretty easily because of that. So you can't move into an enemy space unless they're 2 sizes bigger than you. So can't move into enemy space. If you are adjacent to an enemy, you can move around him during your move action for free. The only time your attack of opportunity happens is when you leave the enemy's threatening area. So again, you can see the Noric here. He has a threatening area completely around him. If Housefar decides to move 5, 10, 15, 20 to get on the other side of him, which might be a good reason why he would want to do this, he has to worry about an attack of opportunity because he's not leaving the threatening area of an enemy. All right, so that's obviously a good thing. Dog Sidious here is actually our ranged character. He uses a bow quite a bit. And if it was Housefar, was over here on this side, anytime you shoot and the enemy has cover, whether that's from an ally or an enemy, if they have half cover, you have a -2 to your attack. If they have 3/4 cover, they have a -5 to your attack. And if they have full cover, then you can't obviously attack them. So in this case situation, because Dog Sidious is directly in line with Housefar to the Nordic actually what you do is you trace lines from the middle of this square to the corner edges here, 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 and here to find out how many of those are going to be blocked. And in this case, Housefar is blocking 3/4 of his attack. So Dogsidius, when he goes to attack this monster, is going to be a -5 to attack, -5 to attack, because he's giving the monster 3/4 cover. So on Dogsidius's turn, he can do several things. He can spend his move action, 5, 10, 15. Notice he's got a clear line of sight. He can then shoot, boing, and then he can continue his move. That is correct. You can break up your movement during your attack. So you can move 15 feet, do your attack, move back 15 feet. Again, if you move adjacent to an enemy or in the threatening zone of an enemy, then you might not want to do that because there would be problems with attacks of opportunity and reactions. But in this case, we have a situation where Dogsidius could move 5, 10, 15, take his attack. He's not blocked at all, and then he could move back if he wanted to move back to get some cover maybe. Maybe he's afraid this guy might come down after him. Who knows, whatever the situation is. You don't want to turn Dungeons and Dragons into a tactical miniatures board game. That's not what Dungeons and Dragons is all about. But it is about playing smart and using the rules to your advantage, right? So it's not about, okay, well, I'm going to move 5, 10, 15. I'm going to take my shot because I'm not going to take any penalties. And then I'm going to move, back over here so I get some cover. That's fine. As a dungeon master, I don't have any problems with that whatsoever because you're using smart tactical decisions. But it shouldn't drag the game down where a player is, okay, where can I move? If this guy is here and this guy is here, I'm going to have to be over here to not take an attack or, to have my attacks blocked. That's where you run into a tactical miniatures game. You got to be quick, you got to be smart, but you also have to be think quick on your feet because your character only has 6 seconds to make his decision, and he's got to move, right? So obviously, if I'm a ranged fighter, I've been trained as a ranged fighter, and I see people on this side, I'm going to try and move to the other side. I mean, it makes sense. So I have no problem as a dungeon master letting the player move over here. And, that way his attack's not blocked because he's playing smart because his character would know, I shouldn't shoot at my friends, shoot them in the back because they don't know, I'm shooting at things. So I could try to find somewhere that's good. But what I don't want is a dungeon master. No dungeon master wants this, where you're dragging combat out because you're trying to find a situation where you're not, not going to take penalties. You're not, you're trying to find the perfect spot to move into. Well, Eldritch Dog, where are you going to move to? I don't want to be in your spot. And the drags combat down. That's not what you want. You want to be quick. You want to think smartly. You want to play within the rules. But you also want the game to continue, and you don't want combat to drag it down. It's not a tactical miniatures combat system. That's not what Dungeons and Dragons is. Some players play it that way, but that's not the essence of Dungeons and Dragons. It's not what it's all about. What it's all about is playing and having fun. And if your group plays that way, and you guys love the tactical combat, and everyone wants to turn it in that way, then that's fine. If that's the way your group plays. But for me personally, it's not about having combat take 2 hours to go through. Because players are trying to think about the exact spot they want to be in and the exact location and get all those bonuses and stuff. So again, the reason we brought this up is because of the situation, right? If it's Halsfar's turn, Halsfar could actually, help out Dogsidious by moving around behind the other enemy. He doesn't get any attacks of opportunity because he stayed within his threatening area. And he can then take his attack with his mace or whatever. Now, if the creature decides to charge Dog Sidious, Hellsfar will actually get an attack of opportunity on the creature. So that's, smart play, quick play, and, you're helping out one another. So, if for whatever reason, if Dog Sidious is here, or let's say here, right, and he's taking an attack on this guy, it's going to be a -2. And that's why you see here in Fantasy Grounds down in the bottom left-hand corner, you see the +2, +5, -5, or -2, -5. That's because those are the cover. That is, if you have half cover, if for some reason, let's say Eldritch Daw was maybe behind this table over here, and the wizard casts a spell item, right? He might have half cover because of the table there. I mean, again, smart positioning, smart moving, and no dungeon master should have any problem with that, and I wouldn't have a problem with that. It's when you drag the game down, trying to find the perfect spot to be in, and not doing, dragging the game out where you're trying to turn it into a tactical miniatures game. So moving around an enemy, freely, without having to worry about attacks of opportunity, reactions, and all that stuff. And then, of course, we talked about moving through difficult terrain, costing double your movement points. So 10 to move there, 10 to move there, 10 to move there, right? So difficult terrain, moving through allies, again, 10 foot of movement, and then another 5 to move there. So that cost him 15 as opposed to his normal 10 feet of movement. All right, so ranged attacks. So as I talked about, Dog Sidious is our ranged attacker. He uses a ranged attack. If you are a ranged person, so you use ranged attacks, or you are a spell user that uses a lot of ranged spells, like, say, for example, Magic Missile. Right, it takes an action. Each dart hits a creature within range. So you can see within range, there's a range on this. Range is 120 feet. So this is a ranged spell. So this is another one of those important rules that my players always get confused with. If you're a ranged attacker, or you're a magic user that uses a lot of ranged spells, and almost all the spells are ranged, by the way. There's very few touch spells. Most of them are ranged spells. So if you use ranged spells, if you are adjacent to an enemy and you use a ranged attack or a ranged spell, you do it with disadvantage. Disadvantage on all your attacks. If you're adjacent to an enemy, it makes sense. If I'm a magic user and I'm casting a spell, whether I'm casting the spell Magic Missile at him or him, it doesn't matter. If I'm adjacent to an enemy, and I'm let's put our magic user over here. There we go, like this. There we go. So if this is the situation, if I'm the magic user, I'm adjacent to an enemy, but I'm casting Magic Missile over here. Doesn't matter who I'm targeting. It makes sense. I'm casting my spell. The enemy's there trying to slash at me, so I'm dodging, I'm weaving, I'm trying to get out of the way. I'm not standing there just casting my spell as normal. So it's not going to be as powerful. I'm not going to have, I have to worry about being attacked and everything. So I am going to be casting my spell with disadvantage, right? Same thing with with the bow users. If I use a bow, I don't want to be adjacent to someone because it makes sense. If I'm got a bow and I'm trying to draw the string and shoot my arrow into you or use my crossbow there, I'm moving it around trying to dodge this enemy that's swiping at me with his claws and everything. I'm not able to just stand in the back, right, and just or easily and quickly. So if you're a magic user or you are a ranged character and you are adjacent to an enemy, doesn't matter if it's the enemy you're targeting. If this guy was over here and I was casting Magic Missile over here, doesn't matter. I'm inside this guy's threatening area. If I cast my spell or I shoot my ranged, it's at disadvantage. It's at disadvantage. So this is one of the other things as magic users or as range characters, you have to remember, if I'm adjacent to an enemy, that's bad. I can move away and then shoot. But if I move away, what happens? I'm leaving the enemy's threatening area, so I'm going to take an attack of opportunity. If I disengage, I won't take an attack of opportunity, right? And then I don't get to shoot because I've used my action in combat. I've used my action in combat to move away, to disengage, sorry, to disengage. I've used my action in combat to disengage. It only leaves me with my move action. I can't change my move action into shoot someone, right? It doesn't work. I can't change my move action into that. So if this is the situation, it was Dog Sidious's turn, he has to quickly decide what he wants to do. Not, this is where I'm talking about playing the game as a tactical miniatures game, right? This is quickly and thinking on his feet. He can either choose to shoot. Again, doesn't matter if he's shooting at this guy or he's shooting at this guy. As long as he's adjacent to an enemy, he's going to do it with disadvantage. So he can choose to just shoot with disadvantage. That's his first choice. His second choice is he could try to move away, take the attack of opportunity from the enemy, and then do his attack freely, right? So he can say, all right, I'm just going to move 5, 10, 15. Oh, wait a minute. The creature takes an attack at you. Whoosh, whoosh, ends up hitting you for 10 points of damage, whatever. Doesn't matter. You move away, and then he decides, okay, I'm going to take my shot. Now I get my shot free. I don't have disadvantage or anything. I've taken my attack of opportunity. Now when it's Eldritch Daw's turn, let's see here. Actually, it would have been Eldritch Daw's turn first. Let's just go with this. So Eldritch Daw says, "Oh, I'm going to cast my spell. It's a ranged spell. I'm going to do it with either disadvantage, or I'm going to move away from the enemy and cast my spell, or I'm going to disengage and not cast my spell." That is your three options. So option number 1, cast a spell with disadvantage. Option number 2 is move away, let the enemy get his attack of opportunity on me, which he does. We're going to say that Eldritch Daw moves away. And then the enemy does an attack. Let's see. Let's get the creature out here. His attack. And he takes his attack of opportunity on Eldritch Daw. He rolls a 1, so he missed. There you go. So Eldritch Daw moves away, casts a spell. Now his turn is done. Now it goes to Dog Sidious. Now Dog Sidious, he also shoots with ranged with his bow. So his choices are A, take disadvantage, B, move away from the enemy, or C, disengage. Well, he remembers that Eldritch Daw just moved away from the Nordic, and the Nordic used his attack of opportunity, and the Nordic hasn't had his turn yet, so that hasn't reset. So Dog Sidious is going to move away. 5. And why is my mouse acting like a jerk? Who knows? Let's try again. So he says, I'm going to move back 5, 10, 15 feet, 20 feet. I'm going to move back here so my fighter can protect me. And he knows the creature's already used his attack of opportunity on Eldritch Daw. If the Dungeon Master forgets, he can remind him, oh, wait a minute, he just used his attack of opportunity. Now, maybe for some reason this monster might have more than one attack of opportunity. You don't know that. The Dungeon Master might remember this. He might know this. He might give this creature multiple attack of opportunities, whatever. You know, you just do it. You just play your character the way you want. You think, I'm moving away from this guy. If for some reason the you say, I move away from this guy so I can shoot my bow at him, and the Dungeon Master says, oh, he gets his attack of opportunity. You can just simply say, oh, well, he just used it on Eldritch Daw. Like, I remember seeing this. So, and the Dungeon Master might say something like, you're right. Or he might say, this creature is more quickly than the ones that you're used to, and he's able to swing and attack you. That's fine. You take your attack of opportunity. That was the choice you had to make. Maybe this monster is fast. Maybe he gets multiple attacks of opportunity. Who knows? Maybe the Dungeon Master changes stat block. Who knows? You just do what your character wants to do and not turn it into a tactical combat system, right? So then you move away, and then you take your attack of opportunity. So Ranged, like I said, most everything is going to have a range, 30 feet. So this is going to be a ranged attack. Light, oops, light. This is going to be a range of touch. So in this case, this is not a ranged attack. This is a touch. So I can touch something right here. I can cast this spell adjacent to an enemy, not have to worry about disadvantage or anything like that, because this is a touch spell. This is important when you're talking about the clerics type characters who are trying to heal people. If we look at the cleric spells, like Cure Light Wounds, you notice this is a range of touch. So if Hasfar, Hamtag, whatever the hell his name is nowadays, Hamtag is down. He's taking 31 points of damage. Boom. So he's down on the ground, right? Hasfar, 5, 10, 15, 20, right? Again, he moved here, that's fine. He's still within the threatening zone of this enemy. He has not left it. Now he can cast his Cure Light Wounds on Hamtag and not have to worry about getting an attack of opportunity, because why? Why is it? Why do you say? It's because it's a touch. Range is touch. Range isn't ranged. It's not a ranged attack. It's a touch attack. If he casts, say, Sacred Flames, this is a range 60 feet. Doesn't matter if I cast it adjacent to me or not. It's still a ranged attack. Okay? So it doesn't matter if the guy is, okay, I'm going to cast this spell right here on this, I'm casting Sacred Flame on the Noric. He's right next to me. Doesn't matter. It's still a ranged attack. So you will take it with disadvantage, or you have to move out of the way, or you have to disengage and not use your attack. But so that is what is important when you look at the spells, is the range. 30 feet for Bless. That is a ranged spell. Guiding Bolt. That is 120 feet. That is a ranged spell. Healing Word is 60 feet. That is a ranged spell. Augury. This is self. So you're touching yourself. Ooh, yeah. Oh. In that case, it's not a ranged spell, right? So all you have to do is look at that part, range, touch. It's not a ranged spell. I can cast that next to an enemy, no problem. So you have to, if you're a magic user or a cleric, you have to understand what your spells do, what the range are, especially if you get adjacent to an enemy. You can move away, you can cast your spell with disadvantage, or you can disengage and not cast your spell. So that's how that works. Spells are a little bit different. So if we look at almost every single, excuse me, almost every single spell that's an attack spell. If you're a magic user or cleric, it doesn't matter, or any class. There's a lot of classes that actually cast spells, all right? If you cast a spell, it's a damaging spell or an attack spell or combat spell. Like, for instance, Bless is not a combat spell. It's a giving everyone a bonus type spell. It's not an attack spell. All right, but something that does damage to an enemy, like Sacred Flame. All spells work the same way in that there are one of two options, okay? All spells. And this, you should, if you want to be anybody that casts spells, you should keep this in mind. It's one of two things. Number one, you have to do an attack with it. And if your attack is successful, then you're going to do damage. Or number two, your attack automatically hits, and the enemy must resist it by making a saving throw, either a Constitution saving throw, or a Dexterity saving throw, or an Intelligence saving throw, or whatever the saving throw happens to be. He's got to try and resist your spell. If he's successful, then he doesn't take damage. If he fails his resist, then he does damage. So it's one of two things. You're either attacking an enemy, and if you're successful, he takes damage, or you're automatically hitting the enemy and they need to make a saving throw. And if they're successful on their saving throw, then they don't take damage. So if we look at Sacred Flame here, you can see flame-like resonance descend upon a creature that is within range. Within range, so it's a ranged attack. If I'm standing next to an enemy, I'm going to be casting this with disadvantage. The target must succeed on a dexterity saving throw or take damage. So in this case, the spell automatically hits unless he dives out of the way. He jumps out of the way, so the flame that comes down from the heavens either hits him or not. Right? So in this case, he tries to dive out of the way. If we look at another attack, guiding bolt, I'm not sure. All right. A flash of light streaks towards a creature of your choice within range. Within range, right here, range, 120 feet. This is a ranged attack, which means if I'm standing next to an enemy, my attack roll will be made with disadvantage. A flash of light streaks towards a creature of your choice within range. Make a ranged spell attack against the target. On a hit, the target takes 4d6 radiant damage, and the next attack roll made against the target before the end of your next turn has advantage thanks to the mystic dim light glittering on the target until then. So cast a spell, I'm doing an attack. If I'm successful with my attack, they take damage. If I'm unsuccessful with my attack, they don't take damage. And then there's some bonus there. So it doesn't matter if I'm casting Guiding Bolt on this guy over here, I'm adjacent to an enemy, I'm going to be making my attack, ranged attack, at disadvantage. Not a good idea. So move away first. 5, 10, 15. Oh, the creature's going to get his attack of opportunity if he has one. If he has his reaction, the DM decides if he does it or not. Then I cast my spell. I'm not at disadvantage. So all spells, almost all combat spells work the same way. You do an attack, success, they take damage. Failure, they don't take damage. Or you're doing an attack, it automatically hits. The enemy must make a saving throw. They save, they don't take damage. If they fail their saving throw, then they take damage. So one or two ways it always happens. There is just a couple exceptions. Magic Missile happens to be one of those exceptions since we're looking at it. This one, there is no attack roll. It just automatically hits. There's no saving throw. There's no anything. This makes Magic Missile different than a lot of other spells out there. You create 3 glowing force. Again, it is a ranged attack. Doesn't matter, though, in this case, because they automatically hit the target within range. They auto-target. They lock in. So it doesn't matter if you're adjacent to an enemy or not, because you don't need to make an attack roll. So that's what makes Magic Missile so good. You can stand next to an enemy and blast him in the chest with Magic Missile, and you don't have to worry about disadvantage or anything because there is no attack roll. It just automatically hits. So there are some exceptions to what we're talking about. Not many. I think Magic Missile is the only spell like that out there. Okay, so just keep that in mind. It's the only spell that's the exception. That's why I brought it up. Number 1, you either do your attack. If you're successful, you do damage. If you're unsuccessful in your attack, they don't take damage. Or number 2, your spell automatically hits, and then they need to make a saving throw. So let's look at Shocking Grasp, shall we? Shocking Grasp. This is touch. So I can do this adjacent to an enemy, not having to worry about disadvantage. Because why? Because it's not a ranged attack. Sliding springs from your hands and deliver shock to a creature you're trying to touch. So you're going to make a melee spell attack against the target. You have advantage on the attack roll if the target is wearing armor made of metal. On a hit, the target takes 1d8 lightning damage and can't take reactions until the start of your next turn. So you can see Shocking Grasp, great spell, right? So if I'm Eldritch Daw here, this creature doesn't wear armor, but let's say there's a knight here or some kind of creature that has metal armor. I Shocking Grasp him. The next turn, I can move away from him and not have to worry about my Allies can move away from him, not having to worry about attacks of opportunity. Because why? Because he doesn't get any reactions. Do an attack of opportunity, you have to have a reaction. You don't have a reaction, you can't take an attack of opportunity. So great little spell. So understanding the rules. Touch. If it's a touch spell, I don't have to worry about disadvantage on my attacking roll because I'm not doing a range spell. So ranged attackers and spell users, you have to know when you're adjacent to an enemy. This is ultra important. My players screw this up all the time. And it's so frustrating because I have to keep reminding them, are you sure you want to do this next to the enemy? You're standing right next to an enemy. Are you sure you want to do this? I have to do this over and over and over again. It's for some reason they don't understand the concept that if I am casting a ranged attack adjacent to an enemy, doesn't matter if it's at that enemy, it could be at somebody 10 feet away, it can be at that guy, it could be at somebody on the hill next door, as long as they're 120 feet away. If I'm casting my spell and it's a ranged attack, I'm going to be doing it with disadvantage. So don't be next. If you're a ranged guy, you don't want to be adjacent, right? So that's pretty much the whole gist of what we're doing there. So whole person, we'll get a whole person. This is a range of 60 feet, so ranged attack. So I'm going to do it with disadvantage. Target must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or be paralyzed for the duration. So again, this spell automatically hits them. They need to resist. Ugh. You need to resist the attack. If I can resist the attack, whether, in this case, it's a wisdom saving throw. So you can use these spells to your advantage because, if you're fighting creatures that are really tough knights that are, using lots of armor and shield and weapons, right? Maybe they got really high strength. Maybe they have a low dexterity. So use spells that target their dexterity. Or, maybe they're not very intelligent because, they're very strong and they've been, using their strength and stuff. If I'm fighting a magic user, I know he's probably got really high intelligence and maybe high charisma. So maybe I want to use something like a strength saving throw or dexterity saving throw, something that, maybe they don't have very high stats on. You can see quite a difference here if we look at just the player characters. So you can see here we got a strength, which is going to give him a +3 to a saving throw. You look at intelligence, he gets a +0. So if I'm a magic user, I'm going, I'm playing the character or the enemy here, and I'm trying to target ham tag, right? The magic user or the sorcerer or whoever is going to try and cast something that is weakened, right? Intelligence or wisdom or charisma. He's big and strong. He's probably dumb and probably just doesn't have a very high wisdom. So I might try hold person on him. I don't want to try something that's going to probably make him very, give him his highest stats. So take lots of spells that have different saving throws in them is what I'm doing. So mostly we're talking about being adjacent to enemies. Again, this all falls into as soon as you line up and you get next to people and the battle starts moving around, right? And all of a sudden you're adjacent to people. This is where all of a sudden people have confusion. That's why I'm spending the most time with this. It's the reactions, attack of opportunities, and the spell ranged users adjacent to enemies. And that seems like we played 5 sessions and it happened probably 10 times during that session. So that's why I think this is the most confusing for newer players, is because they don't quite understand the rules. So that's why I wanted to go over the combat rules with everyone. And maybe, I'm sure my players will learn, but maybe this is good for new players out there that are looking to get into Dungeons and Dragons, looking to join, and they don't understand how combat works. And I think, let's see if there's something else that I might have missed. Let's look through here. So again, actions in combat, attacking, right? Right. So you have your movement action, you have your actions in combat. Actions in combat, attacking, casting spells, disengaging, dodging, helping, hiding, readying an action, searching, and using an object. These are all part of this finger over here. Not this finger over here, right? Then you have your move action, interacting with one object quickly for free as you're moving. You can break up your moves, right? You can break up your move. You can move. Um, let's start Dog Cities right here. So 5, 10. He comes up. He stabs him with his sword. He does have an attack with his sword. So he moved 10 feet up, and now he's going to move, and then he does his attack. And now he's going to move another 5, another 10, another 15, and another 20. So he moved 10 feet up and then 20 feet to get around the creature. And in between that, he did in his attack. This is very good when, let's say, for example, let's give Hamtag his hit points back here, right? All right. So let's say it's Hamtag's turn. This is kind of the situation, right? So he's going to go 5, 10, 15. He ends up doing his attack, which kills this monster, right? So we'll just say he was down to like 5 hit points left. Let's go 45. He ends up knocking that monster, chopping his head off. He's still got movement, so he continues moving. 5, 10, 15 more. So now he's in position over there. So you can take some of your movement. You can do your attack first and then do your move. It's all up to you how you want to do it, but you want to do it quickly and easily. You don't want to spend 5 minutes trying to dictate what happens during your turn and dragging combat out. If your party loves doing that and want to turn it into a tactical combat simulator, that's fine. You guys play it that way. I'm just showing you how how Dungeons and Dragons was meant to be played, but it can be played any way that you guys like and enjoy. But the way normal Dungeons and Dragons is played is when it's your turn, you take your turn quickly. 5, 10, do my attack. Oh, kill him. Okay, I'm going to move another couple more feet up to here, and maybe move around to the side there. Boom, my turn's done. And I'm done within, 15, 20 seconds, and we're ready to go on to the next player. Next player, let's see, Dog City is, all right, well, if I shoot him here, I'm going to be blocked. So I'm going to move 5, 10, 15, 20. I'm going to take my shot. Boom, I take my shot. All right, next player, go on to the next one. Oh, it's the Nordic's turn. Nordic, he's going to go towards Dog Cities. He moves 10 feet this way. Aldrich Dawes says, I use my staff and bash him in the head. I'm going to use my reaction and do my attack of opportunity. He does that, and then the Nordic ends up doing his attack. Boom, we move on to the next guy. Hellsfar, I'm adjacent to someone. I know I'm adjacent to someone, so I don't want to cast a ranged attack. I want to move back. 5, 10, another 10 to go on the log, and then another 5, and then another 5. I'm going to move over. Oops. I'm going to move over here, and then I'm going to cast my ranged spell on him. Oh, as you move away, Glass Staff. He swings his staff at you to do his attack. All right, boom! I take 5 points of damage because he hit me. Okay, now I cast my ranged attack, and where are you? There you are. And I'm going to cast my Sacred Flame. And Sacred Flame means the target needs to make a dexterity saving throw or take damage, 1d8, right? All right, so the Dungeon Master at that point would take his dexterity saving throw, which happens to be here, and drop it in there. Boom. 13 plus 2 is 15. He's successful, so your attack comes down. Whoosh, he dies away, missing your attack. Again, spells. Either you do the attack or the enemy makes the save. One or two things happen on any combat spell. If it's not a combat spell, like Light or Mage Armor or Mage Hand or something like that, then there is no attack. But any combat spell that does an attack is either you do the attack or the enemy makes the save. One or the other. It's one or the other. So that is combat in a nutshell. I think we covered. Let me just make sure really quickly here. How are we doing on time? It's gone a little bit longer than I was hoping. Ranged attacks we talked about. Opportunity attacks we covered. Cover we've covered. Cover, right? Again, cover. If you're blocking your friend from shooting ranged, don't block your friends, right? Ranged attacks. Half cover gives a +2 bonus to armor class and dexterity saving throws. Target with 3/4 covers a +5 bonus to armor class and dexterity saving throws. And then, of course, we'll talk about damage and healing and everything maybe in the next episode. So that's combat pretty much covered. If I miss something, we'll bring it up in the next episode. Next episode, I think we'll talk about healing, hit points, your different stats, and your saving throws, and get everyone on board with all that information on 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. But combat is not that complicated. There's only a few things that you have to remember. Pretty much, combat's, if I was going to describe combat in 30 seconds to someone, I would say this is combat. Take your turn, you get a move action where you can interact with an object quickly, one object quickly. Then you take a special action, a combat action, where you either attack or disengage or dodge or cast a spell or do something like that, unless you have a special power or a special spell that allows you to do something that breaks those rules. If you're adjacent to someone and you cast a ranged spell, you do that with disadvantage. If you cast or if you attack with a ranged weapon adjacent to someone, you do that with disadvantage as well. And if you want to leave the threatening area of someone, you have to do it either safely by disengaging or not safely and just moving away. If you do it safely, they don't get a free attack on you if you do the disengage action. If you just move away not safely, they will get a free attack on you and possibly do some damage to you. So you have to risk. It's kind of a risk-reward situation. So that's combat. If I was just going to talk about it quickly and easily and not show you examples, and hopefully I'll let it sink in. So that's combat episode number 1 and 2. I think we've covered just about everything. Next episode, we'll talk about some more spell stuff, saving throws, ability scores, and how to calculate all your attacks and bonuses. We'll see you guys then. Thanks for watching.